Hi, my name is Bill Rohner, and the topic that I chose to research and present on for this course is how best to encourage independent reading at the middle school level. This is a topic that is very important to me as I begin teaching English language arts in 8th grade this year. Let's start by talking about the importance of reading and the need to strengthen reading skills in middle school. Reading is one of the most important skills, and it should be developed in all subjects in middle school, not just in language arts class. Unfortunately, reading skills are declining, especially in the area of reading comprehension. Some students may have a good working vocabulary and can read words, but still struggle to make sense of text. Teacher Chris Tovani has written about these students in her book, I Read It, But I Don't Get It. The problem with struggling readers is compounded by the fact that struggling readers are far less likely to read than students who read well. Middle school is perhaps an especially important time to address struggling readers and to develop the practice of independent reading. If students are not readers by the end of middle school, they may be non-readers in high school and beyond. Let's talk now about the benefits of independent reading. There are a number of important benefits from independent reading. First, reading builds word fluency and word identification abilities. Second, reading increases vocabulary. Third, reading teaches us how to be better writers. Next, reading builds background knowledge or schema. Reading can also stimulate interest in other subjects like science. Finally, and most importantly, reading develops better reading comprehension skills. The research on reading is extensive, and the benefits of additional reading time are clear. It clearly shows that additional reading time improves reading comprehension and other skills. For example, on reading comprehension tests, it has been shown that students who read more perform as well or better than students who don't read as much. It has also been shown that additional reading time improves reading comprehension far more than additional instruction time. And there are other benefits to independent reading. These include teaching students how to focus for prolonged periods of time. Reading helps students perform better on standardized tests, where reading comprehension is a critical skill. And finally, independent reading encourages students to become lifelong readers, which in turn will help them become lifelong learners. Now, a key question to ask is how much independent reading should students do? One recommendation from the Commission on Reading says that students should be engaged in at least 2 hours of sustained reading time per week. Now, this is less than 20 minutes per day. Even if this does not seem like much reading time, getting students to find and set aside this much time for independent reading can be a challenge. There are many possible steps and strategies for encouraging independent reading, but I will focus on just 3. First, generate interest in reading among your students. Second, try to develop a culture of reading, and this can be done effectively with a reading workshop model, which we'll discuss. Third, students should be taught how to find time to read and how to create a distraction-free environment for reading. Let's talk first about generating interest. Often getting students to pick up a book in the first place is the hardest part. A good first step is to get to know your students. Then, based on their interests, give them a choice of books. A boy who loves basketball may enjoy a fiction or nonfiction book about basketball. Boys especially may enjoy nonfiction books, so be sure to include nonfiction as well as fiction books in considering which books your students may want to read. Once the teacher has made some suggestions, it is important to let students choose their own books. Student choice is key because the student is far more likely to read something that he or she has chosen. Also, student choice leads to motivation and engagement in reading. In addition to student interests, teachers should consider reading ability levels when recommending books. For struggling readers especially, teachers should try to find books that are high-low, and this means books that have high interest and low vocabulary or an easy reading level. High-low is an important consideration in middle school especially. With struggling readers, self-esteem may be as much a problem as reading proficiency level. While high-low is a good concept to keep in mind, reading books that are challenging is also important. Students will be willing to read challenging books if they are also of high interest. The next goal is to develop a culture of reading among students. An in-class reading workshop is a great way to do this. In a reading workshop, which probably would happen in a language arts class, students would spend the period, or at least 30 minutes of a period, devoted to sustained reading. This would probably happen at least one day per week. There are many good elements to consider including in a reading workshop, but I'll note just a few. First, a reading log where students would write down what they are reading and note their progress, such as the page number they are on. This provides some accountability and lets the students know how students are progressing. Second, students should be encouraged to share with their classmates about what they are reading. And third, there should be some culminating project at the end of the term, and this could be something fun, not like a book report. Teacher modeling of reading is also very important. During a reading workshop, the teacher should also be engaged in independent reading in front of their students. Students will observe that their teacher is reading, and they will note that reading is important to the teacher. The students will also be interested in what the teacher is reading, which is the next point. Teachers should share what they are reading with their students. This is a chance for the teacher to show genuine enthusiasm about books and reading. Independent reading is an important goal, but it is not without its challenges. There are three main challenges with independent reading programs. First, students have limited time these days, so finding time to read is difficult for them. It is also difficult for students to find time to read without distractions. Second, administrators may not support devoting class time to independent reading. And third, it may be difficult to have a system in place that holds students accountable for independent reading. Let's talk first about managing time and distractions. For students and adults too, there are obstacles to independent reading. The two big obstacles are finding time to read and being able to stay distraction-free while reading. Students should be given some tips on how to make time for reading and how to stay distraction-free. For managing time, tell students to always keep a book with them. That way, any spare time can be used for reading. This can be while they are waiting or while they are on a bus or a train. Also suggest that students set a time aside specifically for reading, perhaps before bed each night. To stay distraction-free, advise students to always have a quiet place specifically set aside for reading. Also suggest that students put away all phones, computers, and other electronic distractions during reading time. Let's talk next about addressing opposition to in-class reading. Although the benefits of independent reading are clear and well established by research, there may still be opposition to setting aside time for reading in class. Some administrators or even parents may think that in-class reading time is lost instructional time. In response, I would recommend educating these people about the many benefits of increased reading time, which we noted earlier. Also, I would note that in-class reading is important because it provides a good way to deal with the problem of students not having enough time outside of school for reading. Finally, I would point out that the reading workshop model has been proven successful in many schools, and it does a good job at promoting a culture of reading. Next, let's deal with the difficulty of accountability, making sure that students are actually doing their independent reading. There are a few ways to address this problem. First, the reading workshop model can take care of this problem because students are given time to read in class, and the teacher can monitor students as they read. Second, students can perform a self-assessment of their independent reading. At the beginning of the term, students should give themselves reading goals, and then later perform a self-assessment of whether they have met these goals. If assessment of independent reading is student-directed, students may be more honest and more willing to hold themselves accountable. Now, while accountability is a challenge, ultimately we should be encouraging independent reading, not treating reading like it is a required assignment. Enforcing accountability or imposing penalties on independent reading is not conducive to creating a culture of reading. In conclusion, I would like to recap about 3 points. First, as the research shows, there are numerous benefits to encouraging independent reading at the middle school level. Second, there are several strategies that are helpful in developing a good independent reading program. These include a good in-class reading program, such as a writing workshop, teacher modeling of reading, and finally, helping students learn to set aside time for reading in an environment that is free of distractions. Finally, while there are some obstacles and challenges along the way in developing a good reading program, most of these can be dealt with, and it is worth the time and effort to encourage students to become readers at middle school. If they do this at this level, they will hopefully become readers for life. And while I reviewed many resources in my research, these are the key references on which I relied in preparing this presentation. Thank you.